Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today I'm working on a project helping out another buddy of mine, and he has a steam engine that he is working on. He's got an old boiler that he's working on doing a restoration on, and on his boiler it had the tricocks. Now, if you're not familiar with tricocks, these are to manually test the water level in the boiler. Now, you have a sight glass on a boiler that you can visually see the water level in the boiler. But in case something were to happen to that sight glass, you need to have a backup method. And the backup method is using what these devices here, which are again called tricocks. And these are screwed into the boiler at different levels. There's usually 3 of these. And you can crack this valve, and there's a little hole here in the front. And you can look and see whether either water or steam is coming out of that hole. And from that, you can manually determine approximately the water level in a boiler. The ones he have here, these are all original to his particular setup, and they are all appear to be homemade. They all appear to have been made possibly at different times because they're all just a little bit different. But all of them have issues, mainly in that the stem that goes inside of this and the seat down the bottom are just badly corroded, worn out, and he's wanting me to basically rebuild these so that he can use them and use the original tricocks on that boiler. Again, I don't think that these were manufactured. Again, they're all basically the same, but they're all also different from one another. So I think these were just done in a local machine shop. They were just kind of made probably one at a time, probably at 3 different times. They had the original one, something happened to it, so they just went and made a new one, and then they made another new one, and they made another new one, and every time it was a little bit different. No big deal. We're going to deal with that. But let's take one of these apart, and I'll show you basically how this works, and I'll show you basically what our project's going to be for today. So here's a little closer look at the 3 valves, 3 tricocks that have been made up, and again, they're all basically the same design, but they're also all obviously different from one another. First thing I'll mention is the threads down here. This threads into the boiler, and this is very typical on old boilers. The threads going into the boiler was not a pipe thread. This, I believe, is 12 threads per inch is standard on this, no matter what the diameter is. Everything that goes into a boiler has that same thread pitch, and they're all tapered. This was used on fittings going into the boilers. It was used in the stay bolts that went into the boilers. Everything they use this same setup. And this was, again, very, very typical. And again, it's not a pipe thread. Like I said, I think it's 12, but I need to double check that. I'm not going to be changing any of that. But get up here. I've already taken this one apart, so it's going to come apart easily. The other ones I'm going to have to do some work on, but the handle comes off. There's a nut here. Basically, the whole purpose of this nut here is it has a packing up in the bottom of this, and that prevents the steam from coming out around that stem. And then we unscrew this piece, and the stem is actually threaded on the inside there. So when you turn the handle, you're spinning it down and tightening it up inside. And obviously that valve stem there is in very, very poor condition. The seat in the bottom is all messed up. And this particular stem is made out of steel, and ideally your valve stem should be made out of brass. In fact, out of this one has a brass stem in it. This one has a steel stem in it. So I'm not sure what's going on there. We're going to make new stems. They're all going to be out of brass. But you can kind of see the components here. Now, these things are filthy nasty. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take them apart. They got a lot of crud on the inside of them. I'm going to let these soak in a muriatic acid bath, which is pretty much standard for cleaning brass. I know at the museum we have Penberthy injectors on our locomotive, and Penberthy recommends when you clean those to use a 7-to-1 ratio of muriatic acid to water. So 7 parts water, 1 part muriatic acid. And just let it soak for about an hour, and what that will do is it will clean these surfaces on the inside. I may get in there and kind of dig out any trash and stuff that's in these, But I'm going to let these soak for a little while, get them cleaned up, and then the first thing we'll have to do is recut the seats in the bottom of these. They are all way out, so I've got a little tool. We'll go down there, we'll recut the bottoms, and then we'll have to make new stems from scratch. And every one of them I think is going to be different. So that's the game plan. Let me get these taken apart, and we'll get them over there soaking in muriatic acid so we can get these cleaned up. We're going to mix up our acid bath now, and again, we want this to be a 7-to-1 ratio, 7 parts water to 1 part muriatic acid. I've figured up about how much water I needed in here. It came out to about 105 ounces, and I actually went up to that, so it would be a divisible number by 7. So 15 ounces of acid goes into 105 ounces of water, and I've measured out my 15 ounces of muriatic acid right here. And you always want to mix your acid into the water. Never pour water into acid, but you want to pour your acid into the water, dilute it out like such. And I can see some stuff off gas, and I'm going to take this outside and let it sit outside rather than in the shop. I've got my parts here. I've got them wired up individually and numbered so that I can keep track of what goes with what. And I'm going to put all of them in here. And typically, based on past experience, you know, we'll keep an eye on this. We don't want it to sit in there any longer than we have to, but typically about an hour is what it takes for this stuff to work. So I'm going to take this outside so they don't get any fumes inside the shop, and we'll let that sit for about an hour. We're going to get started machining out these new stems. So this is the first one we're going to make here. Kind of see back behind it. I've got a little drawing over here with the dimensions on it that we need to make. And like I mentioned before, two of the originals were made out of steel, and they're both in just really terrible shape. They just don't hold up. They start corroding. They should be made out of brass, and that's what we've got in here is a piece of brass stock. There's actually one of the stems was made out of brass, and it's in very good shape. In fact, I'm not going to have to remake that one. We'll have to reform the tip down here to get it to seal up properly. But I'm only going to have to make 2 of these. So I'm actually starting with some 3/4 inch brass stock here. I've got it in a collet chuck, and I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to start by just facing the end of this and putting a center in there, because I am going to put it between centers when I extend it out that full length. Get a nice face. Bring our tailstock in here, and we'll put a little center in that end. That's plenty. All right, we'll extend this out long enough to cut everything in there. Somewhere right along in there ought to be plenty of material. Tighten that collet chuck back up. And let me get a center go on my tailstock. And we'll bring a live center in here to give us support out there while we turn this out. All right. So again, we're starting at 3/4 inch. I'm going to start the largest diameter on here, which is down here at the end, is about 650 thousandths in diameter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this whole piece down the entire length to 650, and we'll start with that. We got to take about 100 thousandths total off of this. It's about 40 thou. We got about 22, 23 thou to come off of it. I'm going to dial in 20, and then we'll take the last little bit. about 5 thou more. All right, right on the money, 650. Kind of see where we're at here. That's about where I want to turn this next section down. It needs to be 5/8, which is 625. So that's only 25 thou that needs to come off of that. Let's see here. I'll dial in 20 and we'll get a measurement. And we need 5 more. All right, that section gets threaded up to right here. And that top part of the stem needs to be turned down to 1/2 inch. And yep, right on the money. This little section here gets threaded, and that goes to 5/8 11. So let me get set up for threading here. I should be set up on 11 threads per inch. I'm gonna come in here. We'll make a scratch pass. Let me get everything set up here. Check my pitch, thread gauge, and we were right on the money. And let's get these things cut out. Stop here and just make a test fit. We're getting down close. I just got a 5/8 inch 11 nut, and it's just ever so slight. It's not going to take much. I'll probably just take a spring pass, and it should clean it up enough for that to go on there. I'm happy with that. We're making good progress on this. I do still need to turn down and thread a little piece on the end for that handle to go on to. That's going to be, I think, a 3/8 inch, but I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and part this off, and then I will grip this in a chuck up closer to the end where I won't have to have a center in the end of it to thread it. So let's go ahead and part this off. Got a parting tool in there. Also going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're going to have to come in and form the 1/8 inch. We're profile on the seat on this, but again, I'll do that in a separate operation. So there we go with the basic shape, and I need to go ahead and turn out another one of these. Pretty much the same dimensions, except the top stem is a little bit longer on it, but I'll go ahead and do that one off camera. I got the top of the stem in here. We need to turn this down to 3/8. So it's 1/2 inch now. Should be it. 375. Okay. Well, guys, I could try to come in here and single point this, but I'd be coming up against the shoulder. It's just really not a very easy thing to do. And on something small like this in brass, sometimes the best thing to do is just use a good old-fashioned die. So I've got a die in here, and we're just going to go ahead and cut this one on here by hand using a good old-fashioned die. There we go, we got it started. We'll go right up to that shoulder. I'll back out. And because I want to get the threads all the way down, I'm going to turn the die around backwards now, and that will cut them down to that bottom because they're kind of tapered in there. You can feel it cutting some more right there. There we go. Now we're down to needing to put a little square boss on there. That's 3/8 inch square, and that handle will fit down on top of that, and of course the nut will tighten down on top of that. So we're starting out at 1/2 inch, we're going to 3/8 inch square. I've already touched off. I need to basically take 62 thousandths off of the each side of this. Right here we've got it in a square collet block. I'll just flip it around to get it square. So just barely touching the top there. I'm going to feed up 60 thousandths, and we'll start there and then fit it from that. Feed across this side. All right, we'll put this around in the block. All right, let's see what it looks like now. I think that's going to be a winner. It's all the way down. Got my compound set to the same angle. We're going to be using a 82-degree angle in the bottom for that seat. And so I got my compound set. I actually ran an indicator on the actual cutter to match the angles. But we want to get that same taper down there. Good. I'm going to get this speed going up a little bit faster. Yeah, that's cutting a lot better. Just a little bit more, and I think we'll have it. like that. We will do that to all the other ones and have our seats cut. So here's a quick look at the new valve stems. You can see the two new ones that we made here. And like I said before, this one here was made out of brass. It was in pretty good shape. So all I did was freshen up the angle on the bottom of it. And we're going to just continue using that one. No reason to make a new one. But the other ones are all done. And now what I need to do is go over here and recut that seat in the bottom of the actual valve that this needle here will go down onto. So let me get set up to do that. I think we are about ready to put these back together. So what I used was just this little countersinking tool basically that's got that same angle that we cut on the bottom of these for the valve seat. And I had to silver solder this onto an extension, but this cutter goes down in there. It fits almost perfectly inside that hole there, and we just recut a nice seat in the bottom there. So these are pretty much ready to go back together. So we'll start reassembling these by first screwing our seat up into the top of the body. Then these go back together like such. This is going to have packing put in there, but I'm going to let my customer do that. Put the handle on top, and I'm going to put a fresh nut on top of this. I want to get some half-height nuts to put on these, but you can see that is working just fine. And with that, I think we got our tri-cock valves all fixed back up again. Should be seated good in the bottoms. Everything works good. Like I said, the only thing left to do is put some packing in those nuts. And I don't have any packing here, but I know he's got some because he's been doing a lot of packing on this locomotive he's working on other fittings. So we'll just let him take care of that part himself. But I think these are ready to go back. 3 reconditioned tri-cocks all ready to go. Well, there we go. We're going to call this job done. I'll get these parts back over to the gentleman I'm doing these for. These will be going into a Glover steam locomotive that a gentleman is restoring over here in Georgia. It's a Georgia-built locomotive, and he's been working on it for some time. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, these tri-cocks were on it when he got it. I do not believe these are the original tri-cocks. I believe that these were some tri-cocks that were probably built at the shop where the locomotive was being maintained at, and as one went bad, they just went and rounded up some scrap metal and made a new one, and they ended up replacing all 3 of them. And I'm pretty sure they were all done at different times because they're all just a little bit different, as you probably noticed throughout. But nonetheless, we got them all restored. They're all back together. They all should be good to go, so we will get those back to them. That's going to be a wrap. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Leave some comments if you like. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will catch you on the next video.